Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, and welcome to another edition of Dudes Talking Metal. This is where we get together with you, the finest and most knowledgeable dudes out there on the internets, to come here to the Lair and share all their heavy metal knowledge with you. We have Tony Deal from the brand new and fresh Tony Dio's Metal Emporium YouTube channel. Make sure you go over there and subscribe to that. And from the For the Sake of Heaviness channel, we have Mike. So, guys, thank you for joining me here again for another edition of Dudes Talking Metal.
You bet.
All
Thanks,
right.
John.
The question we posed to the dudes is we have two albums for you that we were super excited about, that we were anticipating, that we were ready for, that we read about them and we got all excited. And then they just turned into a big bummer, a big zero, a big disappointment. It's Christmas morning and you've been looking at that box for weeks underneath your tree, and then you rip it open and realize it's just underwear or socks. It's that kind of level of disappointment there. Your anticipation was building, and then it just turns into a big flat bummer that you just blew $10 on. So, all right. So, let's go around. We're going to do one at a time, and we'll go around here. So, Mike, what do you got for your Christmas morning bummer?
All right. Well, my first one, and I know we were just a little bit before we jumped down, we were talking about, super groups and how they may or may not pan out. This one had a fair amount of success. I was looking forward to it. It featured, Josh Homme, John Paul Jones, and then throw Dave Grohl in the mix. And I was like, okay, this could be pretty good. So them Crooked Vultures, I was really looking forward to. And the lead single on that was New Fang. I thought, okay, this is all right. So full album comes out, and I was bored right out of the gate with it. It just completely, I mean, I got through one spin, and I was like, that's the soundtrack to watching paint dry. I could not wrap my head around just how boring it was. Had its very fleeting moments. New Fang, obviously, they put all the promo into that, and maybe all their energy into the writing of it because it was a decent song. The rest of it, no. That was extremely disappointing because the amount of talent in those three
Yeah.
players, especially when you've got, a Led Zeppelin alumni,
Yeah.
it's like, come on, man, this thing's got to just be awesome. Not so much. So, yeah, that was a major, major disappointment. And I still talk to people that are, they try to defend that album as much as they can. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to convince me otherwise. So, them
Yeah, and you
Crooked
figure
Vultures, big bummer.
John Paul Jones, he's one of these guys that doesn't come out of hiding
Right.
that often, you know what I mean? So when he
Yeah.
comes out, you're thinking like, oh yeah, this is really going to be something,
Yeah.
we were talking about the super groups before we started, and I mentioned there's certain people that are just Vinny Appice is in a million different bands. Carmine Appice. It was Mike
Right.
Portnoy for a little while. Craig Goldie, Rudy Sarzo. They're
Yeah.
constantly like appearing on these Frontier Records supergroup things. But John Paul Jones doesn't come out very often. So you're
Right.
thinking like, and I'm a bass player, and I remember getting excited about that. Like, oh, wow, this is going to be really cool, and it's going to be kind of hard rock, the other
Yeah.
guys in the
Yeah.
band and everything. And then yeah, it was just a complete bummer. So good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of those like those super groups you see formed by like record labels like Frontiers, they're paying these guys up front. Hey, you
Yeah.
come do this, you write these songs, you come play. Here's such and such amount of
Right.
money,
Right.
and they keep the label keeps the publishing on it, the rights to it. They're paid flat out. And in today's market, they're like, yeah, that's a paycheck because they're
Yeah.
not. It's not like they're going to make royalties on it over the next,
Yeah.
umpteen years or whatever. They're happy to get paid to do it. And a lot of times I don't feel like they're selling themselves short. They're making a living, and if you're a
Yeah.
big enough fan, you're going to go out and buy it anyway,
Right.
and because I've been guilty of that myself, going out just because so and so's on this, I'm going to go
Yeah.
buy that,
Oh, sure.
and a lot of times it'll be worth, holding on to. There'll be some good stuff that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. What do you got for your pick, Tony?
Okay, so I'm a huge fan of the debut album by The Darkness, Permission to Land. Uh, just love it. It's one of my all-time favorite hard rock records. And I was so looking forward to 2005's One Way Ticket to Hell, this one. And I remember the day it came out, I went to the store and bought it. And I was actually writing for a zine at the time, and I wrote the review while I was listening to the record and just being just so disappointed. The hype on this record was so much. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, love that debut record. It's so great. Okay, oh wow, they got Roy Thomas Baker to produce it. It's going to be good, you know. Okay, well, what happened is they tried to become Queen, and they
Yeah.
tried to, and I don't think that on a band's second album they should try to become Queen. That's something you kind of work into over the
Yeah.
years. But there was a lot of turmoil. If you know the story of the band, there's a lot of turmoil going on, inner turmoil of the band between Justin Hawkins, the singer, and
Mhm.
his brother is the guitarist and the rest of the band. So it's kind of you can hear it. It's here. It's very disjointed. It's all over the place musically, and like I said, they're trying to be Queen with all these layered vocals and stuff. It just I found one review. I think it was because it was a very very costly record. Of course, if you got Roy Thomas Baker on board, I'm sure that cost him a lot. And then it drug out the recording process, drug out putting all this money in it and having, like I said, internal squabbles causing things to drag along.
Yeah.
But Planet Sound said the review of it was world's most expensive penis joke. Yeah, and then of course the band kind of implodes from there and forms into two projects, and they
Yeah.
didn't get back together for 7 years before they came back with Hotcakes. And to me, they've never topped that debut album. Even
No.
the rest of the albums they've done over the last few years, they're good. They got some good stuff on them. And over the years, I do like this one now. I've grown to like it. I know Darren's a big fan of him. He's got
Yeah.
like all the stuff on vinyl and stuff. And this one has grown on me. There's some good songs on here. I can appreciate it more. But I guess I mean I even went out and bought all the CD singles that came out for it
Oh,
and
nice.
stuff. I mean, because I was a completist at the time and trying to collect all the Darkness stuff. But like I said, now I'm a little more at ease with it. I can go back and listen to it now. But at that time when it first came out, it was just such a letdown compared to the greatness of that debut record. Yeah. So
Sophomore slump. Good
That's the
time.
absolute truth because I'm the same way. That debut album, Permission to Land, was so good. That was on repeat, like for a year at least. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
and it
And
was one
then
of those things that I didn't want to like at first. I think, God, the guy's
same.
vocals
Yeah.
is he serious?
Yeah,
But
it's
Yeah.
then
almost like tongue in
the
cheek. Yeah.
songs are so catchy,
And
Yeah.
that was just
and the
it. Yeah.
lyrics were funny and cool, and it had a little bit of Thin Lizzy guitar sound, and
Yep.
you know, and I see you know, they were wearing Thin Lizzy t-shirts and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, these guys are they're into
Yeah.
it, man. And nobody was doing anything like that
No.
in 2000. You know, nobody had anything that sounded like that at all. I mean, we were in new metal and post grunge and all that, and it's
Yeah.
just nobody was making an upbeat, happy record. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually saw the very first show of their very first tour here in the States. It was at the Rave in Milwaukee. And that
yeah.
place was
I,
nuts, man. Absolutely
I saw
nuts.
them on it was 2001. That was their first U.S. tour. I
Yeah.
saw them at the 930 Club in D.C. on
Yeah.
that first tour, and then 20 years later, last year, I went and saw them
Did you?
um, at the 930 Club again on
Oh,
their
that's
anniversary
awesome.
tour. So
That's
Oh
that
awesome.
wow.
was and it was great. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, for me, my first pick is Red Dragon Cartel. Jakey Lee and Red Dragon Cartel. Huge Jakey Lee fan from his time with Ozzy. Loved Bark at the Moon, and I know Ultimate Sin is some people don't like that record. I liked it. Big
Love it.
Jakey Lee fan. Loved him in Badlands. And then Jakey Lee went missing. You know, he was one of these guys that if you listen to Eddie Trunk around that time, people were always calling in, "Where's Jakey Lee?" You know, what happened? I think he released like an instrumental record or something for Japan, but he was basically completely off the radar. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody knew what was going on with him. Like him and Vito Bratta were always the people that Eddie Trunk was trying to hunt down. Eddie Trunk eventually finds him. He comes on his show, does a big long interview with them. Then the word gets out that he's coming back. He's got this band. The name is super cool. Red Dragon Cartel, you know, okay. This so there's layers of disappointment with this one, right? The first one, if you remember, is he puts this band together, and there's already like you don't really the band doesn't isn't instilling a lot of confidence in you. And he goes and he plays a show, the first show he plays with the band, and they sound terrible. The singer doesn't sound good. It's a fiasco. The band doesn't sound good. I think he like fires the singer like right after this first show or something. And so right off the bat, it's not coming out of the gates strong. You're nervous, right? But you're like, okay, maybe it's just whatever. And when the record comes out, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what's he gonna do here? I'm hoping for something that's maybe a mixture of Ozzy and Badlands. We're gonna get some bluesy playing, but we're gonna get some Bark at the Moon riffing
Right.
and stuff like that. And the thing just sucked. I hated the mix on it. The mix sucks. His guitar sounds bad. The songs stink, if I remember. I mean, there's a couple riffs here and there. I think the first song, the main riff, has kind of a Bark at the Moon vibe, so you're kind of a little bit excited, but it very quickly goes flat. Is there different singers on the first CD, if I remember correctly? There's like, or is it just one singer through the whole CD, or is that the second?
I want to say there was a girl that sang on one of the tracks, possibly. I have it, and I after the initial of get just buying it, and
Yeah.
he was going to play in the area. I listened to it, and it just got shelved. But
Yeah,
I
Mm,
I've
got it.
never.
I think I've got it.
Somewhere,
yeah.
somewhere in a
I got it
box in
right
my
here.
garage
I got it right here.
is a
Actually,
copy of it. But I just thought I remember too. There being different singers, like so it had that sort of inconsistent thing going on, and just the songs didn't work. The production stank. The band didn't, just nothing.
Yeah.
Even though he's playing a lot of guitar on it, it just doesn't, just nothing jumped out at me. And I was so excited for this and so thinking like Jake's back, the return of the guitar hero. Here he's gonna get all these years, he never got his just, doesn't get the respect he deserves because Badlands, you can't buy those records. Now he's back, triumphant return of Jake, and it's just
Yeah.
the live shows
there
stink.
it is, folks.
Yeah,
Yep.
does it say anything about the
Yeah.
vocals on it?
So it does. Okay, so definitely had forgotten about this. So Feeder features Robin Zander.
Yeah,
Um, Wasted features Paul Diano. It's
Oh.
not the
yeah,
Def, and it's not the Def Leppard Wasted, believe it or not. And Maria Brink from Maria Brink, she's in that band. What is it?
Oh, in this moment or something
In
like
this
that.
moment, she's
Yeah.
on a track called Big Mouth on here. Yeah, and Sass Jordan is on Redeem Me.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, it had the makings to be a decent record,
it's
but
another
it's
one of
just
these
the
super group
songs.
things where, but in the vocal department where this, if off the top of my head, I can't think of this ever really working, where when you have different singers, it just never works. In my opinion, it makes the album feel inconsistent, and even though the
Disjointed.
singers might, yeah, disjointed,
Yeah.
even though the singers are great singers, it's this is a thing from when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I wanted my bands to have the same members in it from album to album. I wanted the
Sure.
singer to be the singer, the bass, but and so I could invest and get into these guys. And Darren and I talk about this on our Sabbath podcast. When Sabbath started changing members constantly, it was like this constant. Okay, Dio's in the band. Dio's gonna, or he's the guy, and I'm here from the beginning. And here we go, 8 to 10 albums with Ronnie James Dio leaves. Ian Gillan comes in. All right, I'm invested in this. I got the pictures on my wall. I'm all about this new lineup. Gillen's gone. Glenn Hughes is in. He's gone, and it feels like this. I'm being suckered. Like I keep
Yeah.
coming back and thinking like, okay, this is going to be the lineup. And so I just never liked when there's like multiple singers on a record because then it doesn't feel like a band. Or if it's like studio musicians, or I want the guys in the band to feel like a band, a team, a group. I can't get and root behind these things where it's just
Yeah.
studio guys and stuff like that. So the Red Dragon Cartel is just such a big disappointment. I really wanted to love it because I really like Jake, but it was just a disappointment. And the second one might be even worse than the first one. The second one is just, I don't even think I bought it. I think I listened to it online or something, and I was just like, nah, not going there. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Nah, 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 nah. You're not doing this to me again. We're not going there again.
I've
We've
got a
been
really
dead.
good friend who plays guitar and he like worships at the altar of Jakey Lee. So he was just, he couldn't contain himself knowing this was coming out. And even he said, now I've probably listened to that first album like once and I've probably never heard the second. But even he said, he goes, this is the most uninspired playing that I've
Yeah.
ever heard. And especially like you were saying, this is supposed to be the big return of Jakey Lee, the prodigal son returns. And he said it's just absolute phoned in performance from start to finish.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and the other members didn't help any. I mean, I saw them live. They came and played here, and they played they played a bunch of stuff from this record, and they did some Ozzy and some Badlands. I remember they did Rock and Roll Rebel, and the drummer was actually sang it. But
oh wow.
I thought the band were kind of just. I mean, they were okay,
Hmm.
but they weren't like top notch players. And it was just kind of like Jake and some of his buddies just decided, to go out and play. I do know that Greg Chasen came in and filled in for the bass player for a while on
Hmm.
the tour. I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been great. But the only one good thing I can say about that show was Jake came out afterwards. He did a meet and greet. He took time. He talked to people. He
That's
signed
cool.
whatever you brought. He was act like he was happy to be there.
Yeah. That's
He
good.
he was really cool. But like I said, it was kind of a lackluster performance even live. I mean,
Yeah.
now the second I did see them, they played M3 one year, and that was a much better performance. I think he was there amongst a lot of his peers, and he had
Yeah.
something to prove, and he
Step it
played
up.
like he was. Yeah, he played like his life depended on it that day, and he actually played a lot better, and it was a really good show.
Probably at that point he should have had a manager or somebody really guiding him. I heard Eddie Trunk say this about guys like Jakey Lee and Vinnie Vincent and these people that disappeared. They dropped out of the music business for 10, 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
1990 to 2005 or something like that. And when they come back out, they realize they don't, it's almost like they've been on another planet and they come back to Earth and they're like, oh my gosh, like so much has changed and they can't wrap their heads around it that like, you mean we're not going to be on a tour bus? Last time I was out, I was on a tour. You mean now I'm
Right.
in a van and I'm not playing arenas, I'm playing clubs and nobody sells CD music physical product anymore. And I mean, just
Yeah.
the landscape of the whole thing has just changed. And I think some of these guys come out and they don't know how to sort of fit in and make it work. And with Jake, maybe if he had had somebody managing him and really handling it really carefully, like the debacle with those early shows, I mean, that just shouldn't have happened. And if anybody looking over that and should have not let that happen. When you come
Yeah.
out like that, a big appearance, everybody's on the edge of their seats. Jake's back, his first show in ages, and then it's just a bummer like that. It's like first impressions, they last that long, and so.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what do you got for your second pick?
All right, my second pick, and I kind of blame myself for buying the hype on this one, but um, this was really hyped up for a little bit, and then it kind of all just fell apart. But I don't know if you guys remember the Metal Allegiance, and that was Mark Mengy, and then he
Mm.
had Elvis and he had Skolnick and Portnoy and Andreas Kisser, and I think Bobby Blitz was involved in that, and Mark
Yeah.
Osagueda. I mean, a who's who. On paper, this thing looked like it was going to be the most molten metal album of all time. So I bought into it, hook, line, sinker, picked it up, and it was one of those albums where I listened to it once. I'm like, okay, I like it. I really do, knowing damn well I thought it sucked. And then I tried it. I tried it again, and I'm like, this is just the most. I can't say it was corporately contrived or put together, but it was so color by numbers, and I think it was just put together just with all the names and everything. And yeah, it was god awful. and we're about, I think, 10, 12 years removed from that. I know they put out a second album and maybe an EP if I remember correctly, but to like little to no fanfare, and that all just dissolved too. But and they tried doing that too. I know that there were shows they put on, and all of those names I mentioned were involved. And then like anybody else, like we were saying, a who's who of you know any metal project that's put together was part of it. But yeah, and that was during an era too. I think the Roadrunner All Stars were out there, doing that, and they had members from all the different Roadrunner bands, and it just seemed to be that era of that super group. But that particular one, that Metal Allegiance, I thought this was going to be great, and then yeah, I got suckered into that one, and it was definitely not great.
A lot of times
Still cool to
these,
see live. The live
It'd
performance, I'm
probably be
sure it's
great to see
great to
live.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
yeah, just didn't translate to records very well.
yeah,
No, and like we were saying earlier too, it all looks like it's going to work, and then you get all those people into a room, and it's either the Eagles are clashing, or oh God, we none of us can write anything, or and
yeah.
it just doesn't work,
Well, what it reaffirms is, I'll use a sports analogy. I'm a hockey fan. You could apply this to anything. You can't have 12 Wayne Gretzky's on the ice. You got
There
to
you
have
go.
a guy who's a grinder who in
Yep.
Led Zeppelin, John Paul Jones was the quiet guy.
Right.
Insert the name any group, there's always this personality dynamic, and everybody sort of slots the groups that function really well. Everybody slots into their zone
Yeah.
and knows their role on the team. But when you get together the alpha dogs from all these other teams, it's like I want to have the ball all the time, or
Yeah.
it's like they're
Look
used
at
to.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it never translates, and they probably all get together and they realize they're getting there. From a promotional standpoint, I understand why people do this, because if you're a
Yeah.
fan of any of the band that any of those guys are in,
Right.
you might go out and buy it. And then they probably sit down and they realize like, oh my God, trying to get everybody's schedules together, trying to
Yep.
make everybody happy and this, that, and another thing. And it almost never works. But
No, and that
Yeah.
can, those types can never be a cohesive band for any,
yeah, exactly.
period of
There's
time. It,
no,
it everybody has their obligations to their mainstay bands or things like that. So, it can never be a money generator, I guess. You can never put something like that on the road for any, amount of time,
yeah.
months or a year or anything.
And so, how are the
So,
fans? I mentioned this earlier that as a kid, I always wanted to be invested in my bands. Who wants to get put their heart invested in this when you know that
right.
it's not going to last? It's not going to. I'd almost rather see them put out a covers record or go out like you just described
Yeah.
Sure.
at that show, like Metal Alliance, where they come into whatever tent when they're in when they're in Hollywood, they're getting all the LA guys come up on stage and play with them. When they're on the East Coast, they're getting the East Coast guys come
Yeah.
out and they do that. I'd almost rather do something like that where it's just sort of like this all-star jam type of thing. But to try to make us feel like that this is in any way a
Yeah.
real band and we're supposed
No.
to invest in this, it's nah.
The other thing I take away from that too that I think of, or years later I would think too, is you put all of these, big name members of other bands into one room and expect them to crank out an album. Okay, if I'm Alex Skolnick and I'm in here and I'm gonna help write the Metal Allegiance album, and I come up with a wicked ass riff, am I
Yeah.
really gonna waste it on this? No, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take that back to Testament,
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna
So
you're gonna use some of your leftovers that
yeah,
weren't,
yeah,
I got this riff that never made the cut.
right.
I'm not giving you my ultimate best material. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's
absolutely.
like you're set up to fail no matter what, because these guys aren't going to
Yeah.
give their best stuff to, these little projects that aren't going to go anywhere. So,
Yeah.
If he did, Chuck would be like, "Hey
yeah.
man, that was a really cool riff. Why didn't you bring that
Yeah.
to the
What are you
band?"
doing, man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Tony, what do you got for
Yeah.
your second pick?
Okay, for my second pick, one that I'm sure all of us would probably agree on here. We waited 3 decades or more for this Sabbath record, 13.
Oh,
Oh,
And
yeah.
I just talk about disappointment. I mean, like I said, we waited a long time for it. The
Yeah.
hype on it was so much. I mean, you had Rick Rubin's going to produce it, and Rick Rubin's done some great stuff. I mean, he made Trouble sound like Black Sabbath, but he did make Black Sabbath sound
Sound
like
like
Black
Black
Sabbath.
Sabbath.
You know, I mean, I mean, he's done a lot of great records, but you know, I really like the two songs that were included on the reunion live record. That was a "Selling My
Mm,
Soul" and "Psycho Man."
Hmm.
Those were good, but they're way better than anything on this. I mean, they were playing a
Yeah.
song back then called "Scary Dreams" that I
yeah,
thought
it
was
was
really
pretty
cool.
cool.
Didn't make the cut this time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's a couple of songs on here. I think "The Loner," that kind of I like that. There's a couple of things on here, but I'll be honest with you, I have not listened to this in ages. I mean, I tried to get into it when I first got it, and it just didn't do much for me at all. And
Yeah.
it's a bummer that they went out with this. You know, and here I have the deluxe Best Buy version with the extra disc with extra songs and even a
Yeah.
bonus track that you don't get anywhere else. And nothing can really save it. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, people that don't like Never Say Die. I mean, this sounds like Paranoid next to I mean, that sounds like Paranoid next to this, you know. I mean, really, yeah. This, but I mean, I like Never Say Die, but yeah, it's one that's just never grown on me. It's just I've tried to give it more and more
Yeah.
listens, and it's like I said, it's some cool riffs on there and stuff, but you know, I would rather listen to the original mix of Forbidden, to be honest with you.
You know, when it first came out, I was kind of okay with it. I mean, I was disappointed, but it's aged very poorly for me. And for me, the thing that's most insulting about it is that it's so by the numbers. So I can sit there and go, okay, this is the song Black Sabbath. This is NIB. This is, you know, you can
Yeah.
tell that Rick Rubin just told them, and at that point in time, Rick was famous for taking bands who had lost, and artists who had lost their way and bringing them back. And Rubin talked about how he sat them down and made them listen to the first two or three records. And so you can just kind of tell that it was pushed in that direction. And I remember that, you know, Bill Ward wasn't on it, so that already sort of put everybody,
And
you
that's a
know,
good point,
Yeah.
John. The drums have no swing about them.
yeah, they don't have any
That's
character and
no character because Bill's got that swing and it's his own style. And I mean, Brad's not a bad drummer by any means, but he's just not that same style of
No.
drummer as Bill
and I'm
Ward.
sure he had zero say
Yeah.
in the music. I'm sure he was just strictly there as a guy to just play. I mean, I've had a conspiracy theory that's not based on anything. I have nothing to base this on except my gut instinct that part of the reason why they didn't, I think that they walked into that record and before anybody played, even picked up their instruments, I think that they sat down and they said, okay, Rick Rubin's going to do this. You're going to make a record that's going to sound like the first three albums. And I think deep down inside, if Bill was there, that Bill would have wanted to push this in a different direction. The three of them agreed, okay, we'll make a record that sounds like the first three albums. And but Bill's going to be a troublemaker. He's just not going to sit back there and play drums. He's going to want to do something different. I love Bill's solo stuff, and I know how creative he is. And I really think, you know what? How do we handle this? Give him an insulting contract that he'll never in a million years take, and then that'll be our way to push him out. Brad Wilk will come in and just sit there and play drums, and we'll just push this out.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, it's an album that through
Good
time,
theory.
yeah, I was kind of again, I was kind of okay in the beginning with it, but yeah, I get it. It was certainly hyped, and everybody was,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, expecting big things from it, and it just sort of laid an egg to a certain degree. But okay, my second pick, I'm a bass player, and I could have put. I could have actually, well, I don't know if we have a dishonorable mentions. I'll save that for my dishonorable mentions. This one for me, I was really excited about this. The bass player, Steve Harris, one of my favorite bass players, right? Steve has this solo band, British Lion. All right, right away, it's got it. British. I'm thinking 70s. I'm thinking UFO. I know Steve's a big UFO fan. I'm thinking we're gonna get UFO. We're gonna get proggy, like, even though Maiden at that point was doing their sort of prog-ish stuff, although I don't think it's prog. I think they're just long songs. But I'm thinking, yeah, this is gonna be Steve really like pushing boundaries here. I've found that ever since Bruce originally left the band that Steve's bass playing has gotten kind of boring. He just sort of plays along with the riffs. He never, all those Steve Harris bass fills and bass lead lines and stuff. You just don't hear them in the reunion era Maiden. I thought, all right, this is gonna be, Steve's gonna be all over this record, man. There's just gonna be bass like the first Killers and the first Maiden record, just all kinds of bass, and it's gonna be UFO mixed with in my mind for some reason in my mind I had like UFO mixed with Thick as a Brick. That was like we're gonna get this progressive but hard rocking thing, and it just stunk. Total disappointment. The first thing that jumps out at you is the production just stinks on it. It sounds so flat and dull and I know the story of it is they recorded at different time, Steve's home on from tour and he would record with these guys. Uh, and it sounds like that. Like one song just sounds like nobody EQ'd them all the same way. One is too bright, one's too muddy, the bass is boring. He's just playing nothing. You're not none of those Steve Harris bass fills are on this record. The singer is a big bummer. Not that he's a bad singer, but he's got this kind of like not a very loud, powerful voice or anything. He has this kind of soft, mellow quality to his singing. And just the songs just come up flat. There's nothing interesting from an instrument perspective from anybody in the group. There's nothing so there's no songs that are hard rocking like a great UFO song. There's nothing on that there. It doesn't particularly have a 70s vibe to it. It's just boring. It's just flat out boring. And the only reason why anybody cares about it is because of Steve and his connection to Iron Maiden. I saw British Lion came through Florida and they played some weird venue like a distillery or something like that. It was totally bizarre. There was maybe 250 people. 249 of them were all standing on Steve's side of the stage. And it was like, almost nobody standing anywhere else. Nobody cared about. I mean, it was just all about like if they had came out and said, "Oh, Steve's not feeling well tonight. We got some unknown sub bass player," everybody would have left.
Yeah.
Nobody was there for the band. So I was so excited for it. I was really hoping that like, oh, this is going to be something super, super cool. The album cover looked cool and it just totally flat. The second British Lion record, no better. It was another case like Red Dragon Cartels, like fool
Yeah.
me once. No, I'm not. You're not. Oh no, I'm gonna listen to this before I buy it. And even though the production was a little bit better, it still wasn't any good. It was totally boring and yeah, so a big bummer. Even though Steve seems fully invested in the group, he goes out on the road and hats off to him, all respect. The dude's out. He's used to Iron Maiden flying on Ed Force One and stuff like that, and he's out there in a small like camper van type of thing, rocking it out on small stages. He gives it his all when he's out there live. So hats off to him. He looks like he's playing Madison Square Garden when he's in a distillery in Orlando. So, all respect for that. But man, just the music, bummer, man, just a bummer.
Yeah.
So,
I thought the second album was better than the first one,
yeah,
but
it's still not
but
that great, but it's
it
better than the
no,
first one.
I haven't revisited it since I got it, and I mean, I was getting pumped up about seeing them when I did see them live, and I enjoyed them live. I thought the songs came off
Yeah,
better live than
yeah,
Yeah.
because you had the more energy. You're watching
yeah,
them, and like Steve was so into it.
yeah,
He's it's like you said, John. He's playing like he's at Madison Square Garden. He's singing every word, as he's
yeah,
playing
yeah, yeah,
along. And then
Yeah.
of course he came out afterwards and met everybody, and it was super
Yeah.
cool, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do a quick go round of our dishonorable mentions here. Records that bummed us out, maybe didn't bum us out quite as bad as those, instead of socks for Christmas, maybe you got something remotely cool like some Star Wars pajamas or something like that.
That would be cool.
But they were still clothes, they weren't toys. All right,
That's
Mike, what
always
do
a
you got
bummer.
for your almost made the list?
Well, I'm gonna concur with both of Tony's picks, The Darkness and that and Sabbath. Those were good. Absolutely very disappointing. But my other one, it's kind of a little bit more on the fringe. I was one of the few, I guess. I was a big fan of the Ripper Owens era Priest. Really, really loved Jugulator. Demolition fell a little short, but became a big fan of Ripper. And his first project outside of Priest was called Beyond Fear.
Mm,
And I had high hopes for that. I thought this was really going to be good. And I'm not saying it's not good, but it's kind of Jugulator part two. And I was kind of bummed out by that because I was expecting him to like, okay, I guess we could chalk it up to growing pains for him, coming off of
Mm-hmm.
Priest and having to kind of reestablish himself. But I was expecting a little bit more depth in the record, a little bit more, a little bit more mixture of things, but it came off more of like a Jugulator part two. So I was a little disappointed by that. And I continue to follow Ripper. I mean, he's a journeyman vocalist. He's played for everybody. I know it gets a little comical at this point, but I think he's still a hell of a vocal talent. And when he sets his sights on things, he's pretty damn good. So, but yeah, Beyond Fear it was a good album, but it definitely fell short, and I was pretty bummed out by that because I was real impressed with what he pulled off with Priest. Those are some big shoes to fill.
all right,
Yeah.
Tony, what do you?
What if that album had sounded like that first Winter's Bane record? I mean,
Now
something like
that,
that. I mean,
yeah.
that would have been incredible because I was really hoping that's what he'd go back for, but he didn't.
That would have been, yeah, that would have been freaking perfect. I guess that's kind of what I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to say. I didn't get that out quite all the way, but yeah, I think he was in that Priest template, and that was really hard to kind of free himself of.
Get out
But
of, yeah.
yeah,
All right, Tony, what do you got for your?
Um, well, I've been disappointed with Ozzy records for years. And it goes back, it probably starts with Black Rain. And even Ozzy said when he made Scream, he's like, I gotta get out of this whole. My band sounds like my Outlast album sounds like a Black Label Society album, and it does.
mm,
It sounds like Black Label with Ozzy singing on it. Um, but Scream was the one that I was really disappointed with because Gus G comes into the fold.
Oh,
Gus G is going
yeah,
to be his new guitarist. I love Firewind, and I think
yeah,
Gus is just a remarkable guitarist. And I was expecting so much from that record, and I got it. He didn't write a thing on it. It's all these outside songwriters, once
yeah,
again with Ozzy. The songs are uninspired. There's some cool guitar work on it, but he didn't let Gus do what Gus does best.
mhm.
And I think if he had involved him in the songwriting, it would have been a much better record. Because I mean, just listen to some of the stuff that the Firewing comes up with. Not the fast power metal songs, but some of the more straightforward rocking songs they got, like Mercenary Man, if you're familiar with the band. Something like that would have been great for Ozzy. And I was just really disappointed that it didn't. It just wasn't what I expected it to be. And you know, and it's unfortunate that Gus didn't become a household name from
yeah,
being Ozzy
Yeah,
Osbourne's guitar player. I mean, nobody since Zach has been able to, acquire that. I mean, Joe Holmes didn't. He was just a flash in the
yeah,
pan. Well, not
hmm,
flash in the pan player, good player, but he was here and then he was gone.
yeah,
And it's just been really tough for anybody to jump into Randy Rhodes and Zach Wild's shoes, and of course the Jakey Lee that we mentioned
yeah,
earlier. But even Brad Gillis is known as being Ozzy's guitarist.
yeah.
People
yeah.
know him for that more than some people know him more we do about Night Ranger. So yeah, I was disappointed for myself and for Gus.
Yeah,
That
that's a
was a
good one.
criminal misuse of Gus G because
Yeah.
Yeah,
Firewind is fantastic and he
yeah,
is so talented. So yeah, I that's really really good pick, Tony. That could have been a completely different sounding album had they given, him part of the reins to take it where he wanted to go. So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Gus, I remember good pick because I remember thinking, oh, Gus is sort of this European. He's going to bring this European
yeah,
classical a la Randy thing
Exactly.
element
Yeah.
back into the band, and it totally doesn't do it. You can't even tell that he's even really on the record. It just the riffs themselves even it sounds like the people that were writing it with Zach Wild in mind, it's just like sort of
yeah,
Hmm.
it just yeah, total flat. For me, and I didn't pick this one because it's not an album, but this is so we say an event. I'm a huge, huge Rainbow fan. Love all eras of Rainbow. Rainbow gets back together. In typical Richie Blackmore fashion, he doesn't give the people what they want. Instead of bringing back anybody from the classic lineup, he decides to use guys from his Renaissance band and Jens Johansson on keyboards, great keyboard player, and Ronnie Romero, right? Have I got his name
yep,
right? On
Hmm.
vocals, great, great vocalist. But you could have brought Jolin Turner, was
right,
basically, call me, buddy, I'm ready to go. Of course,
Hmm.
he doesn't give the fans what they want. And I remember seeing the performance. I forget where they performed first, the first show, and it stunk.
yeah,
And I've read, I don't know who said this, that they just never really rehearsed. They were always like, Richie, when are we going to rehearse? And then they'd get together and they'd play a couple things, and then they wouldn't, and then it was just and Richie has this. He's notorious for not being friendly to the fans and stuff like that, and but I always thought like the music was important to him, that he would never let the music, he'll not sign autographs and be moody with journalists and not want to promote the band. But when it comes to playing the music on stage or on record, Blackmore's one of these guys with high standards.
mhm,
And my opinion of him just got knocked down. My favorite guitar player, and it hurt me to see how bad they sounded. I remember they do Stargazer, and he just completely fumbles the riff, and he just sort of drops his hand, just like
mhm,
and the show is just filled with that. Like it's almost like, how does that riff go? Like, he's just his solos stink. The guys I'm sure are good in his Renaissance band, but the drummer and the bass player have no attitude, no rock and roll
No.
punch to them.
yeah,
Boring.
It's completely
God.
boring. Jens Johansson, amazing keyboard player. He's trying to pick up the slack, trying to pick up the weight. It's not happening. Blackmore is using like his guitar sound from the Renaissance band, so it's got
yeah,
no bite to it. It's got no power to it. Ronnie Romero, he's giving it his all. He's doing his thing. He sounds great, but again, it's just like the band behind him is just totally laying an egg
hmm,
behind him. So that was just such a huge disappointment. I was really hoping that Rainbow would be doing some festival appearances, and I would have gone. I would have flown to see them if it was done the right way, if it was like a proper, true
yeah,
Rainbow reunion, and if they sounded good and everything. But it was just such a disaster. I know they put out some sort of live thing from it. I never even bought it. Just completely disappointed in it. Just a big, big bummer. All right. Well, there you go. There's our picks for albums we were looking forward to that turned out to be big disappointments. So let us know what you think of our picks. Let us know what your big coal in your stocking was. Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you head on over to Tony Dio's Meadow Emporium. Like and subscribe over there. Make sure you head over to For the Sake of Heaviness. Like and subscribe there. And we'll see y'all at the next Dudes Talking Metal.